So I noticed you guys are somewhat familiar with New Zealand music. You know about AK-79 and Toy Love and all that stuff. Tell me how that happened.
For such a small country, you've managed to produce a tremendous number of great bands.
Well, we like to say we're punching above our weight.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what they say.
Yeah, I think for me,
I
had the good fortune of working in a record store for many years, a couple different record stores. So Flying Nun was we were always excited when the Flying Nun import box came, and so many incredible bands from the Verlaines, Jean-Paul Sartre Experience, The Clean, obviously, the Kilgore Brothers, and Hamish, who lives in Brooklyn now, or he did. I don't know if he still does.
I'm pretty sure he does. Yeah.
Straight Jacket Fits, all these Toy Love, all these incredible bands that were huge influences on myself, and I'm sure Sohrab too, growing up.
Yeah.
We just had a Flying Nun 40th anniversary concert last year. It was pretty cool. Straight Jacket Fits who played, the Bats and the Kills and all that. So it's fantastic. Yeah, they're all still going strong. See, when you live on an island like this, or two islands, everybody's stuck with each other, so the bands never break up.
Yeah,
I mean, not a bad, or just sort of shuffle around,
Yes,
good for us too, that they don't break up.
Yes. Now let's talk about your band. How is it pronounced? I want to make sure I got it right. Is it SAVAK? SAVAK. Okay. And so the new album is Human Error, Human Delight. It's coming out. Well, it'll be tomorrow here in New Zealand. So how are you feeling about releasing it in these days and times and minutes?
Well, I guess,
yeah,
maybe better than the last record that came out in April 2020, when right in the throes of the pandemic. So
nice move.
at least this time we've been able to go out and play a few shows. We have some shows scheduled. We're not isolating, which was how we wrote the record in the first year of isolation.
Right.
So it feels good. I mean, obviously the world is turned on its head right now, and the war in Ukraine is horrible, and the pandemic just still ravaging. There's a lot more important things happening in the world than like a small band like us releasing a record. But if we can provide some temporary relief, a little bit of entertainment for people to get their minds off all the horrible crap happening, then we're happy to do that for sure.
And I think it's honestly for us a good way of sort of maintaining our own kind of sanity, and it's just being in a band is a nice way to be able to get thoughts out and sort of be a little self-reflexive and trying to see what's going on inside our own heads. And so I think it's definitely, for me, has been a really nice way of kind of weathering this bizarre time.
Right. So I think I read somewhere that the album was written and recorded over Zoom. Is that true?
Somewhat.
Well, so Johnny, who wrote the liner notes, is an old friend of ours, and we have a Wednesday night Zoom group. It's not a men's group. We refer to it as not a men's group.
That's good to know.
And
tonight is our 2-year anniversary, in fact, of this Zoom group that Johnny Temple, Eli Janney, and Alexis Fleissig are old friends of ours. They were in the band Girls Against Boys. James Canty, who has been in many bands, who was in SAVAK at one point. He was in the Zoom group. Matt Schultz, the SAVAK drummer. And we've had a few guest appearances here and there from various friends. But is there anybody else that I'm missing?
Well, there's Jeff.
Jeff Sanoff, yeah.
And he and I were in a band together in the 90s called Edsel, and he's pretty much recorded or mixed everything that we've done. And also the last band I was in, Obits, he worked on, I think, all those records too. So, it's a fun group of friends. Right. And so when Johnny was writing the liner notes, he was referring, I think, to the fact that he saw us every week over the course of the pandemic. And somehow that ended up, I think, being interpreted as we wrote it over Zoom, which, sure,
why not?
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, it really was, outside of our own immediate families, it was really the only other human interaction we were having for many months while we were isolated and afraid to leave our apartments in New York City. But so yeah, technically it wasn't really written over Zoom, but I think it's safe to say that it was influenced by some of those Zoom sessions with our friends, and it was one of the few ways we were able to really communicate in person via the Zoom.
Right. We also we had to do it sort of in separate takes. So for example, Michael would record stuff at his house. I would go into our practice space and record stuff, and then when Matt, our drummer, was available, I would go to the practice space with him, or Michael would go to the practice space with him, and we record drums, and we'd between takes have a fan cranking, and we got a special air purifier. So, it was definitely a Zoom/pandemic influence recording.
Okay. Now, did the Zoom/pandemic influence the songs themselves and the sound, do you think?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, well, I think just, certainly most of the music that was written during the pandemic. So whether or not it directly influenced it or not, it's hard to say, but it certainly influenced some of the songs that I wrote. I was, that was a reaction to what I was feeling at the time, what experiences I was having at the time, whatever personal, traumas, highs and lows that were going on at the time. And, certainly just searching for a little bit of positivity and light in a fairly dark moment in our lives too. So I think maybe more indirectly it was influenced by it. There are a couple songs that I wrote specifically that I think not necessarily as a reaction to the pandemic, but as a reaction to what I was feeling during that moment during the pandemic. So
yeah, I would say for me mostly the general feeling is a more abstract response to the pandemic and what we're all going through. There is one song, Recanted, where I do specifically sort of call out certain things that were very particular. Like at the time, our miserable governor Cuomo would get on the TV every night, and he would have these sort of like very self-aggrandizing speeches and have like props and all this stuff, essentially trying to make us feel better about this incredibly horrible time. And meanwhile, I live corner from a hospital, and there were bodies just piling up in refrigerated trucks outside the hospital. So that is specifically addressed in that song. But the rest of it, I would say, is sort of a little more vague in terms of kind of either, as Michael was saying, either trying to find some like a glimmer of hope or things to criticize our situation or ourselves.
Now, speaking of Recanted, I see there is a video that goes along with it. You guys, I don't know how much input you have in the video. You're kind of taking a little cue from Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues, mixing it with this like weird vintage TV 50s footage. Tell me about that.
We alienated the kids by insisting we weren't for sale while taking competing bids. New frontiers, we quoted from the Old Testament, we drank cheap domestic beers.
So for that one, our friend Ian Svenonius, he's the Dylan character.
Okay.
So, and I grew up in the DC area, and he's from DC originally, and he was in bands like Nation of Ulysses and The Makeup, and he has a thing called Escapism that he does, and I just emailed him and asked him if he would be up for doing something. And he sent me back the footage of him with the kind of cue cards.
Right.
And when I loved it, but I also thought as a single thing, it was a bit redundant. So I went and I found that old footage of the TV remote control advertisement. Yeah. And I essentially took what he gave me and cut it into that ad. And then what he had sent me, he had shot on a high 8 camera. So it had this really sort of kind of fuzzy 80s video quality to it.
Yep.
And so I wanted to really kind of play that up. So I actually projected it and reshot that. So it looks like a tape of a tape of a tape of an old VHS.
Or almost Super 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was fun to do.
Right. Now, speaking of the videos, there was another one I wanted to touch on, the one and the song Cold Ocean. Because somebody's looking through records. Is it you at one point? And I was trying to identify the record that you pulled out. I'm going to guess.
Right.
I thought it was a Robert Gordon album, but I may be wrong. But that's what it looked like. It looks very familiar.
be like a Steve Forbert or something.
Oh, that's
That
what it
could
is.
be Steve Forbert. I got them back there too. So.
Yeah.
we were all contemplating we should have sort of edited our own record in there, but that would have been a little bit too on the nose say. But that was a fun video. Very cold day in Brooklyn that we shot that, but it was sort of a nice vignette of Brooklyn, essentially, from starting out from kind of the neighborhoods where we live, taking the train all the way to Brighton Beach, which is a heavily populated Ukrainian and Russian immigrant beachfront area in Brooklyn, and ending up at Coney Island. It was just it was a cool video shoot, and seemed to kind of.
What can you tell me about the song itself?
That song was written in May of 2020. My family and I had the good fortune of getting out of the city after a couple months of lockdown and staying really close to the Atlantic Ocean in sort of like the upper, what is that, Long Island Sound, kind of Southampton, West Hampton, whatever, the Montauk area, somewhere around there, wherever we were staying.
Right.
And so I had every day during the pandemic, my life was waking up and walking to the ocean, and it just inspired me that way, and brought up a lot of questions I wanted to, answer, or at least, try to tackle in my mind. And, it's definitely, I think, is a feeling of not really knowing what's happening and a lot of uncertainty, but, and how powerful it is as well. And, how much mystery there is in the ocean, and, how that parallels with our lives as well. So.
Right. Now I see the album opens with a tune called No Blues, No Jazz. And there's a sax bit in there, a guy named Josh Stinton, I believe, playing, and he plays on another track too, I think, Set Apart. So how does that happen? Did somebody say, we need a saxophone here? What's the process like?
Well,
they
actually,
sounds great.
I love it.
Josh actually literally lives around the corner from me, so he's easy to reach. I can go knock on his door and be like, hey, you want to play some sax on this thing? And I often do run into him on the street. But he's played on a couple other of our records, and I met him several years ago, and he's just a really nice guy, and he's a great saxophone player. We also have another friend, Greg Vegas, who plays saxophone on a couple of songs. And I guess our approach is sort of no rules, kind of if we feel like it would be nice to incorporate a certain sound or something that we know. And we do that a lot actually with bass on the records, because we haven't had
you have multiple bass players, don't you?
Yes. So we, but it's kind of fun, because then we can sort of think about, okay, who do we know who maybe the way their playing style would most benefit the tune, and so it's nice to sort of have a group of friends that we can reach out to, and so it is a collaborative element to it that is really we like a lot.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of bass playing, Jeff Sanoff plays bass on Trashing the Ghost. He also co-produced with you guys. So tell me a bit about him and his input to everything.
Trashing the ghost, leaving our bodies up under the host, kicked out of the party. I feel the spirit leaving me. The light is oh so warming.
Well, he and I were in the band called Edsel in the 90s, and he played that band. I played guitar and sang, and unlike me, I did not take any notes when we were in the studio. I just got bored being in the studio. He really astutely was paying attention and would write stuff down and take notes about microphones. And lo and behold, ended up becoming a professional engineer and producer after that band was.
And a very good at that too.
Yeah. And it's great. I mean, I was actually at our practice space earlier today, and I was texting with him because I was having a technical issue with the Pro Tools. And so he's sort of our go-to, sort of master of all things recording.
Right.
But he's a great bass player. And so we tracked the bass for that in the studio where he works, which is actually Little Steven from Bruce Springsteen's band. It's Little Steven's studio.
Right.
And he's his engineer. And so when Little Steven is not busy, Jeff can work on some of his own projects. So we've been the beneficiary of that setup, which has been pretty great.
Essentially, Jeff has been like the fifth Beatle of SAVAK since our inception. And we're grateful to have him. I mean, he's done such a great work with our music. And if he's just been so busy with his recording life that, you know, it's hard for him to be a full-time member of the band. So, but yeah, he's been great to have for mixing the records and doing some producing and stuff like that. So,
Now, one other track I wanted to touch on was Dealers, because I noticed, I don't know how you feel about this, a bit of a REM vibe in a couple of tracks, that one in particular, and the guitar solo reminded me of the Byrds' 8 Miles High. So
I want to show you. I want to show you.
I mean, that's a song that I wrote, and both of those bands I'm huge fans of. So that's very high praise. Yeah, I think I was kind of going for, in my mind, it's somewhere along those lines, or maybe sort of like a Neil Young meets Teenage Fan Club meets Big Star kind of, you know, vibe. So all of those things, they're all kind of within the same realm, so to speak. But yeah, so that's and it does kind of, I think that song maybe kind of stands out as a little bit different from the rest of the record. I mean, it's all SAVAK, and Sohrab and I have our own, you know, sort of styles that we, you know, blend together to form what is SAVAK. But yeah, that's, you know, I don't know. I still
since Michael sang the song, I as the non-singer, I can say I really love the line, I fell in love with a dealer, baby. He gives me everything I want, right?
There you go. And did you guys go to South by Southwest?
We did. Yeah.
And how was that? What was that like these days?
It was great. Yeah. It was really fun. The weather was beautiful. It was not as crowded. We've been there many times. In fact, Sohrab and I first met at South by Southwest in the late 90s, which is how we reconnected in Brooklyn in 2015. We came up with, you know, we're going past, oh, which band were you in? Blah, blah. You know, we actually played a show together in South by Southwest in Austin in like 97 or 98. So anyways,
right.
It was great this year. It was not as crowded as it has been in years past, I would say.
It's grown to be like, I think the only one I went to was like in 1990 when it was first starting, and you could see and hear everybody, but I'm sure that's not the case anymore.
Still, you know, a lot of like just bands playing outside, you know, just really laid back vibes. We played 6 shows in 3 days, so we were busy. You know, so many bands do that. You have, you know, it's like, well, you may as well just play as much as you can. So, so good fun.
So what do you try to accomplish while you're there? Do you have like something specific in mind that you want to try and get done? People to meet, deals to make, that kind of stuff.
Tacos and margaritas.
There you go.
It's seeing friends. I mean, we've been doing this long enough where it's a nice thing, you know. It's so many of our friends who live in different parts of the country or even the world convene in Austin every March for South by Southwest. So it's a great way to see a lot of old friends we don't get to see all that often. The food and the weather and the margaritas are always great too. We've never really gone in with any agenda as far as like, you know, we want to get signed to a bigger label or find a booking agent or whatever, that sort of thing. You know, if that stuff happens, it happens, but that's never really been on our agenda. We just go to have fun and play some music, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I think that for you know, I mean, at our age, we don't have, our expectations are appropriately adjusted. But you know, I think part of it for us going to play South by Southwest is, as Michael was saying, like seeing friends that maybe we haven't had a chance to tour where they live. You know, like a friend of ours from Chicago came to a couple of shows, and I haven't seen him in a couple of years. And so it's nice to do that. And it also, I think, possibly gives people a chance to see us who wouldn't otherwise, because maybe, as you know, they're from like a further flung place or, you know, for whatever reason. But yeah, we definitely, we're not like a making it kind of band.
Okay. So along those lines, a thought, the album is out imminently. What do you hope, what do you want to have happen? And what are your plans in the next few months to kind of promote it and get it heard?
I want to be able at the end of the year to say, put the little Spotify up saying 50 million streams.
There you go. You'll be rolling in dough at that point, huh?
Right, exactly. No, that's actually the least of our concerns, I would say.
Right.
I mean, we do this because we love to do it, and we're always grateful if anybody wants to listen and pay. I think we've been doing this long enough now too. It's like the 10,000 hours, the Malcolm Gladwell. So we're fairly good at what we do now. We write good music, we make good songs.
Yep.
We put our heart into it, and I think we just, hopefully some other people will listen and connect with it, and hopefully it'll make them feel better in a certain way, or whatever kind of feelings that might elicit that are hopefully all positive. So.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much music out there, so I don't expect anything extraordinary to happen to our group, but we do sincerely hope that people do give our band a chance, because I think that we are sincere. There's no affectation, there's no gimmick, there's no nobody's shirtless climbing a speaker stack in our band. There's no know what I mean? There's a beautiful front person to ogle, right. So it really is just about us putting our hearts into this music. And I think if there's enough different influences that I think if somebody gives it a chance, who if you like REM and the Byrds, but if you also like the Chills, or you like I don't know what, like
Mission of Burma, or
Television.
All that stuff.
We're just distilling all the good stuff into one band, so we're kind of like your one-stop shop for like all the great music.
We're just cutting out the garbage.
So, well, you guys should come down here. You ever been to New Zealand?
Never.
No, I've been really a couple times, but never to New Zealand, unfortunately.
Well, book up a tour with the Chills or the Bats or somebody, and off you go. They're still here.
Amazing thing to do.
Yeah. So. Bailter Space. I'd love to.
There you go. Yeah. Those guys are around.
Actually, they reissued that Gordon's record, which is so good.
Amazing.
Yep. Yeah, excellent. All righty. Well, better wrap this up. We've got more people to talk to today,
Marty.
But thanks for your help talking to me and doing this. Good luck with everything. And keep your heads down in Brooklyn there, because
Thanks so much. I hope I get to check out your record collection at some point.
Anytime you want.
Impressive. Yeah, if we make it to New Zealand, we're coming over and listening to records for sure.
That's what they're there for. Excellent. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Good.